In the Holocaust Museum, not so very far from here, there is a heart-wrenching letter written by Wilma Grunwald to her husband, Kurt. They were Czechoslovakian Jews who were held along with their two sons in the infamous Auschwitz death camp. Kurt was a doctor, and the Nazis used him to care for those prisoners who were being forced to work in factories, and that meant that he was kept in a different portion of the camp from his family. As happened to so many others, Wilma and the boys, John and Misa, were paraded in front of the notorious SS doctor Joseph Mengele as he decided who would be gassed and who would not. John, the older son, had a congenital condition that had left him with a pronounced limp, and so he was put into the group marked for death. Wilma could not bear to see her son go to the gas chamber alone, and so she added herself to that group marked for death. On the evening before they went to the gas chambers, she managed to write a short note. She gave it to a sympathetic guard and asked that he deliver it to her husband. And amazingly, he did. This is the note. You, my only one, dearest, in isolation we are waiting for darkness. We considered the possibility of hiding, but decided not to do it since we felt it would be hopeless. The famous trucks are already here, and we are waiting for it to begin. I am completely calm. You, my only and dearest one, do not blame yourself for what happened. It was our destiny. We did what we could. Stay healthy and remember my words that time will heal, if not completely, then at least partially. Take care of the little golden boy and don't spoil him too much with your love. Both of you, stay healthy, my dear ones. I will be thinking of you and Misa. Have a fabulous life. We must board the trucks. Into eternity, Wilma. That short letter displays both the vilest of human evil and the most remarkable self-giving love. The horrors of Auschwitz are almost beyond comprehension, and a warning of what can happen when the other is demonized. But I think I can comprehend the love of a mother who could not let her child die alone. In our gospel reading this morning, the writer hammers on a topic that is a favorite in John, loving one another as Jesus has loved us. Abide in Jesus' love, the reading says, and twice it says, love one another. But there is something a little bit odd here, although it's not anything that you can see or hear in English. That is because there are several words in the original language of the New Testament that all get translated as love. There is the philia type of love, which shows up in the word Philadelphia, referring to the love of brother or sister. But philia is most often associated with the love of good friends. And in fact, where it says friend in our scripture reading, it would or could be literally translated as the beloved, the philia sort of love. Given how much Jesus speaks of friendship in these verses that we heard, we might expect that this philia sort of love would be the love that Jesus commands his disciples to have for one another. But it is not. Instead, it is agape love that Jesus speaks of. And for the gospel writer, this agape love is Christ-like, self-sacrificing love, love that would do anything for another. In our scripture reading, there is the famous line there about no one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. And when I've heard this in the past, I've simply assumed that it's just Jesus talking about laying down his own life. But now I'm not so sure. No doubt it does reference Jesus' death, but it also defines loving one another as Jesus loved us. Jesus expects the community to have the same self-sacrificial, life-giving love that he has for his disciples. When Jesus had first introduced this command to love one another as Jesus had loved them, he also added these words, "By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." This Christ-like, sacrificial love would be so clear and so obvious that even those who were not a part of the faith community still see it, and they identify Christians as those who love one another. I wonder how often people who are not Christian look at a church building and go, those people over there are a little bit crazy. They would do absolutely anything for one another. They would even die for one another. Do people look at us and think that we're a radical community where everyone takes care of everyone else, no matter how difficult, no matter how hard? Or do they assume we're pretty much just like everyone else in the world, other than a few curious beliefs? When the pandemic hit last spring, it created huge problems and caused big changes for the Welcome Table ministry here at this church. For the few who may not know, Welcome Table is a free meal held on the first and third Wednesday of each month. And in addition, on one of those Wednesday meals, a $10 grocery store gift card is given out to each adult. But COVID meant that it was impossible to bring people into this very space here and have them sit down for a meal. And so the planning team that oversees Welcome Table decided to put together small bags with toiletries and snacks and that $10 gift card to give out. And they gave out the gift cards on both Wednesdays of the month. And as we figured out how to navigate the stay-at-home orders, eventually we went back to a meal. The small group of volunteers would prepare a meal which was boxed up and which is handed out to those who come to the church along with that gift card. And the need was great, and the number of people coming for meals quickly mushroomed. We went from handing out around 300 gift cards a month to handing out more than 1,200 a month. That's $12,000 a month in gift cards alone. Much, much more than we had ever budgeted. Such a cost seemed unsustainable, and so the planning committee began to think of ways to cut back. But before doing anything, we let the congregation know about the situation. I don't think anyone was prepared for what happened. We received $100,000 in donations to Welcome Table. That's more than 10% of our entire budget. Some of the people who gave were people who were easily able to give large amounts, but many who gave money that they would have otherwise spent for other things. They decided that these members of the community needed their money more than they did. They embodied loving one another. I have felt immense pride for this congregation and how they responded and continue to respond to this need. And I love to talk about it. And I can't help wondering what it would look like if this sort of behavior marked all our activities, all our interactions here at FCPC. What would it be like to abide in Jesus' love so deeply, to be so suffused with that love in our being as individuals and as a congregation, that we saw anyone in need, everyone who is hurting, every hurt, every pain, every injustice as an opportunity to share Christ's love. As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. All praise and glory to the God whose love takes on flesh and comes and loves us even to the depths of a cross. The love that took flesh and showed us the shape of love, of true life as children of God. Thanks be to God. And now as God's